Hello, good people. Welcome back to another blessed message with Lady Not, also known as Minister A. Okay, so what happens when friends become enemies? I don't know what happens with that, and why does it happen? We call those people those secret enemies that pretend that they are your friend, but um in the background they're stabbing you in the back. They are called frenemies. Frenemies. They're covert. They're in the background doing all this wickedness and you're unaware, and yet you love them still. And this was the case with Saul and David. Anybody know that story about Saul and David's relationship? They started off as friends, good friendly, you know but what happens is jealousy comes into play. When you have something that somebody wants and they envy and they know they can never get it, they can never have it. Yes, they can never have your personality. They can never have your looks. They can never have these things. They start to be jealous. The favor of God is on your life, and it's like, well, Lord, I done prayed and fasted. What about me? And yet they can never have it. They can never gonna get it, 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 never gonna get it. Woo, woo, woo. Y'all know that song. Who was that? Escape. I hope I'm saying the right group. I don't want to mispronounce. But anyway, let's look at 1 Samuel 18. So this little battle that they had, this frenemy thing, I don't get it, but I get it. So it says, after David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. So that was another thing. Jonathan is Saul's son. So Jonathan also loved David. He saw something special about David. David was a special individual who had these spectacular qualities. He had a pure heart, and I think that will be another video. He had a pure heart. He had love in his heart, and that's rare when you can really truly love your enemies. And that was David. He could truly love his enemies, despite the fact that they were after him and trying to harm him. He still expressed this agape, undying love for his enemies, and that is special. Okay, so from that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return to his father's house. So Saul identified something special about David. And when he identified it, he said, okay, you know what? I need you near me. I don't even want you going back and forth. You need to stay right here so I can be close to you. Because whatever you have, I admire it. I admire it. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. So Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. So that's the idea of giving the shirt off of one's back. That's how you demonstrate love for somebody, and care. You're saying, I'm willing to give up some things and share my things with you. That's a demonstration of love. In verse 5, it says, whatever Saul sent him to do, David did it so successfully that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the people and Saul's officers as well. So David was successful in everything that he did. Okay, there was no problem too complicated for him to solve. There was no task that was too big for David to achieve. Now, again, this is breeding a contempt. This is breeding contempt because although Saul loves David and he admires him, he knows that it's something special. It's something significant about David that Saul just doesn't possess. He doesn't have it. And he never will. Because we're uniquely made and we all have our specific individual gifts and talents. Yeah, that's how God made us. That's why it's not good to be envious of others. It's not good to be jealous. It's not good to seek what someone else has. Even when the commandment says don't covet after someone else or their spouse. Don't covet what they have. You have what you have. You have what you need. And if you think you don't, pray about it. Don't start to look down on someone else because they have what you don't. You know, don't be mad because they got the bag. You don't be mad. Okay. So in verse 6 it says, when the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing, with joyful songs and with tambourines and lutes. As they danced, they sang. Okay, this is again after David defeated Goliath. So this is a big thing, a big show on David's abilities, his capabilities. You know, so now again, it's another way to shine that light, the spotlight on David, and it's taken from Saul in his mind. That's not necessarily the case half the time. You know, sometimes when you're getting elevated or exalted by folk, other people start to feel like that dismisses the things that they have done. That diminishes what they have done. But that's not necessarily the case. You too can shine in your own light. You know, we have to allow people to shine according to their skill and ability. And it doesn't take anything from you. You have to be comfortable with that. You have to be comfortable knowing that just because somebody is doing great things doesn't mean I'm any less great. We all God's children. You hear me? We all have something to offer. So, as they dance, they sing, Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. So here's the problem. People start comparing. When people start comparing folk, that's when the feelings and emotions are brought up. Those negative feelings or depressive feelings where you're feeling like I am inferior to someone because they're being elevated. But that's not necessarily the case. That's not even the point. You both can shine, you know. But Saul started feeling some kind of way. Saul was very angry. That was the way he was feeling. Some kind of way he was angry. Saul was very angry. This refrain galled him. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? Okay, so Saul starts to feel like David is coming for his spots, his position. And you know, people don't like that. People do not like that for some odd reason. Even though the kingdom belongs to God. Your position belongs to God. Your title belongs to God. So anything that you have is God's. And God has a right to transfer power, positions, statuses. He has the right. You know, we have to start being humble enough to understand that nothing we have is because of ourselves. It all belongs to God. It's all because of God. Therefore, you can't hold on to something and have anger in your heart for someone because they're doing things differently than you. You know? Oh, geez. So it says, what more can he get but the kingdom? So again, he thinks David's coming for a spot. And then in verse 9 it says, and from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. So it goes from friend to foe real quick. Friend to enemy real quick. Secret enemies. You know, your frenemies real quick. So again, he's not telling David this. This is the thing. He's not sharing this information with David. He's just holding these ideas in his head. He's harboring these feelings about David. Not sharing. Now, David's going on like, this is my friend to the end. These are my friends. Okay. Saul loves me. Jonathan loves me. We're all good. So he's in his own land where Saul is like looking at him jealous and mad. So the next day, an evil spirit from God came forcefully upon Saul. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the harp, as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, I'll pin David to the wall. But David eluded him twice. So Saul is trying to kill David at this point. You know, the invitation for evil spirit. Once you start holding those bitter feelings towards somebody, those hate-filled thoughts, You're inviting the enemy into your space. Yes, you are. That's what happened. When you start opening that doorway to have envy, jealousy, all these things that are sins and things that God says don't do, he tells us not to do that. You're inviting the enemy into your space to occupy your being. Yes. And then you start doing things such as this. Destructive things. Sinful, hateful, mean things. You will not be rewarded for actions such as that. You will not. They are not justified. So in verse 12 it says, Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with David but had left Saul. So he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men, and David led the troops in their campaigns. So he was giving him tasks, he was giving him jobs, but it was just so he could keep an eye on him, but keep him out of his vicinity. You know, close but not close enough. You know, he wanted to see what he was doing at all times. You know, but in verse 14, and everything he did, he had great success because the Lord was with him. So he was being successful. Saul also had this idea that he wanted to see him fail. He wanted him to stumble. So he put him in certain positions and on certain tasks, assignments to actually incite his demise. He wanted him to fail. He wanted to be able to say, see, I knew he couldn't do it. I knew that was too much. You're getting a little weary, aren't you? You're getting overwhelmed. Some people set you up like that. They set you up for failure. That's where that notion came from. They set you up so that you can fail. Not so you can be successful. You know, some people, they look like they're in your corner. They promote you. They put you in a certain position just so you can fail. Ain't that something? That's called a frenemy. You have to be aware. To be aware is to be alive. Everybody doesn't have your best interests at heart. That's why you have to be careful. You have to be discerning on the folk you surround yourself with, the positions you accept, the job offers you accept. Yeah, some of them are just setups. I've been a witness. My sense of discernment had to go up. They are just setups. And then they get mad when you're successful in them. Just like so. You set me up for failure. I didn't fail. Not only that, I excelled because I'm a child of God and we're above and not beneath. We're above and not below. And then you're mad. You're jealous because I'm being successful. I'm doing what you can't do. So, what it says, in everything he did, he had great success because the Lord was with him. When Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. He's like, how are you doing this? You are supposed to be failing at this point. There are people in our lives sitting around like, she's still here. He here. Again, he showed up on time. How he get here? Then his car broke down. His car broke down the other day. How he still getting around? This people still doing it. I'm telling you what I know. This is the word of God. This is true. This is true. Didn't we take all her stuff? Didn't we take all her money? We fired her, remember? We blackballed her. We blackballed her. She can't even get a job. How's she doing this? How's she doing? How's she looking that good? What? She's still here. She's still positive. She's still singing those songs. She's still coming to church every Sunday. There's people like that. There's people like that. They afraid now because they like, wait a minute. You ain't even supposed to be here no more. You still showing up. Yeah. So, that's the word of God. That's the word of God. Where are we gonna go with this? We want to keep reading. Okay, so I'm not gonna read it. I'm just gonna skim around because I know the story. So Saul says, "This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna let the Philistines do well. I'm gonna keep putting him in the wars and in battles so that he can fail. But I'm also gonna keep it a secret, and I'm gonna do this by offering my daughter in marriage to him." Okay, so he offered the first daughter. That didn't work out, and then he offered Michal, who ended up being his wife. Michal actually loved David. Okay, which was another problem for Saul. So let's jump down to Verse 28 is still the same 18th chapter. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and that his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and he remained his enemy the rest of his days. So this is the thing, when you set up things for failure, you don't know how it's going to work out. You don't know who's favored by God. You really don't. You really don't know who's truly favored by God. You know, so that's why your plans don't work when you're being nasty and conniving behind people's back, when you're stabbing people in the back. Like I said in the last video, somebody mama said, when you dig a hole for somebody, you might as well dig two. One for them and one for you. That's it. That's it. And we know how this story continues to go. So the Philistine commanders continue to go out to battle. This is in verse 30. And as often as they did, David met with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known. Oh, don't you just love that? This is like a heroic story. This is better than the story about David and Goliath. Because he's sitting there intentionally serving as a stumbling block to David, and yet every single task that David is faced with, he is successful in. He is above and not below. He is the first and never the last. That's what God promised when you walk with him, when you walk righteously with God. That's the thing. Stop setting traps, because they're going to backfire. They're going to backfire. You're going to be looking like an idiot. You're going to be looking crazy because you don't know. You're going to be afraid because you don't know. You don't understand it. The Lord was with David. So friends, you're going to be a friend or a foe. Stop being a frenemy. If you have ill intent, malice in your heart, you need to be upfront about that. Don't trap people. Don't go around digging pits and holes for people, because you're going to be the one in it. You're going to be the one in it. You want to play grave digger, you're going to fall in it. You will fall in it. That's the word of God. Okay. Be blessed. Have a peaceful day. Talk to you soon. Walk in righteousness always. Okay.